What's going on, everybody? It's Conti here with another video. In today's JavaScript tutorial, we are going to have a look at loops which enable iterative tasks to be completed when programming websites. Whilst following the instructions within this tutorial, ensure that you save your notepad files with the .html as your extension. So for example, a file name could be page1.html. You can save this on your desktop, for example, like what I'm doing. After you've saved this one and you wish to access the file in future, right click on the saved file, such as the icon for page1.html on your desktop, and choose the option open with. Open with Notepad to access your code, or to access your web page on your web browser instead, choose your preferred browser such as Microsoft Edge. In this first example, in my HTML document, within the JavaScript tags, you can see the first type of loop which we'll go through here, which is the for loop. Inside the parenthesis, you can see three different components. The loop is basically going to use the value assigned to the variable newbies, which was declared previously as 2. And whilst it is less than or equal to 10, it is going to increase by 1 each time after writing the sentence, people have entered the building. The section before people will contain a number depending on what the variable newbies contains at the time. To start off with, the number will be 2, and after each sentence is printed and the loop runs once more, it will add 1, print off the same sentence again with the number incremented by 1. I've written this code in Notepad and I'm going to preview the web page in Microsoft Edge, and as you can see here, a sentence has been printed on individual lines. Each time we go down, the number has incremented by 1. The display of strings on individual lines is made possible through the use of the paragraph tags, which I have also contained within quotation marks. In the case where you are defining a loop and you haven't actually declared a variable such as newbies previously, you can actually declare the variable for the first time within the parenthesis. So for example, here I have newbies equals 2, which was previously on a line above the for loop. It is also possible in for loops to use multiple variables. So for example here, before my first semicolon, separating the variables from the condition and the action that the web page will take during this program execution, I have included 3 variables separated by commas. So the first one is the array name names, containing 3 values. The second is another array name colors, and finally the variable I, which we are going to use as our counter to determine how many times the loop will run. It is important to establish how your loops will end in any programming language. Otherwise, if a loop runs endlessly, you risk crashing the software you are using or your computer. In this case here, the loop will continue running until it has gone through all 3 items within the list. Names. I will be incremented by 1 each time. The name to be printed will be parallel to the color printed on each sentence. So for example, the first one should be David's favorite color is blue. And here is a preview in Microsoft Edge. In this next example of a loop, you can see that I've put a JavaScript programmer comment down here explaining what the particular script does. I have declared an array up here with 3 individual values, and this time the for loop contains the word in between a variable which we are going to use to point to each value inside the array declared above. So with each loop, the number of each iteration is represented within the variable count. We are going to go through each value separated by the commas and print them off in the sentence alongside the rest of the string here. Like in the previous example, I've used paragraph tags to ensure that each line is printed on a separate section of the page. and each value in my list is referred to in this section here, where I have the array name and in square brackets the count, which will be a number pointing to each value. Ensure that you have all instructions that you want your loop to execute within the pointed brackets also. Note here that I've also separated the string values and the array reference with commas. And when I preview this page in my browser, Microsoft Edge, you can see the 3 individual lines printed on the page, one after the other, going down. Another type of loop that we can look at as well is the while loop, which is going to execute a set of instructions. So in this example here, the variable count has been assigned with the value 0, and whilst it is less than or equal to the value of 9, it's going to run through this conditional statement here, and it will write a certain string on the page depending on the value that it stores. So if the value within the variable count was less than 5, for example, it will print off that particular number and say that it was less than 5. So for example, 1 is less than 5. Otherwise, if the value inside count is 5, the second string will print off 5 is equal to 5. Otherwise, whatever value in count is greater than 5. For example, 7 is greater than 5. And it will go all the way up to 9, adding on 1 to the variable count each time. And here is an example of how that looks inside a web browser. In this final example of how a loop functions in JavaScript, I've included a page with 2 paragraphs inside my page's body, each with a unique identifier. So for example, the first paragraph is paragraph 1, then followed by paragraph 2. These will be used to display the text written by our JavaScript code. Inside my JavaScript tags, you can see that I've declared an object person1. Each person object contains a name and a year. This will be the year that they were born in, according to what is written in our do while loop. Each person object is contained within an array, and references to each paragraph identifier have also been included in a separate list also. To ensure that we go through each item in an array one at a time, we use a count variable also. Bear in mind, in order to refer to the first item in an array, as always, we start with the number 0, and then this increases by 1 each time. So the second value inside an array will be referred to with the number 1. Always remember that rule with arrays. Identify the position in the list that an item is and subtract 1 to come up with its index reference. Now on to the do while loop. Whilst the value inside the variable count is less than the quantity of items inside the people array, we are going to find a paragraph inside the body of the text using inside the paragraphs array and the count number a particular paragraph identifier. So the first one, for example, will be paragraph 1, pointing to the first paragraph within our body. Since this part of the web page is HTML code, we include the .inner HTML segment afterwards. Then we assign it with a value, which will depend on what's contained in the people array. So using the count variable again, on the first iteration where it is 0, we will refer to person1 and the name of that particular object. In this case here, it is Harry. Bear in mind, as I've mentioned in the programmer comment at the section underneath, we need to use the plus symbols here instead of the commas like we did in the previous page. Otherwise, only the name will print off and the rest of the string will not show on the page once we preview it in our web browser. After the plus symbol will be our string, was born in the year, and then finally in our sentence we will connect the year from the objects which we will refer to inside the people array, and using our count variable once more. So in the first iteration, for example, we go to person 1, which is Harry, and their year will be 1961. And hopefully on the page you should see Harry was born in the year 1961. Counts will be incremented by 1, as we've seen in previous pages, until we get to the final value in our people list. As long as the count number is smaller than the number of values inside the people array, then the do while loop will continue running. And here's what the page looks like when previewed in a web browser. Thank you very much for watching. Hope that video was useful to you. To support this channel, please like and subscribe. Please check out the channel for more computing tutorials. Join me soon for another video. Take care.